Welcome back. Number 16, revolt of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Now Korah, son of Izhar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, along with Dathan and the Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, descendants of Reuben, took 250 Israelite men, leaders of the congregation, chosen from the assembly, well-known men, and they confronted Moses. They assembled against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. All the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. So why do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" Why do you exalt yourselves? You mean the same selves that had already been exalted before all of this? I'm not understanding what the problem is. When Moses heard it, he fell on his face. Then he said to Korah and all his company, "In the morning, the Lord will make known who is his and who is holy, and who will be allowed to approach him. The ones whom he will choose, he will allow to approach him. Do this. Take censers, Korah and all your company, and tomorrow put fire in them and lay incense on them before the Lord. And the man whom the Lord chooses shall be the Holy One. You Levites have gone too far." The Levites have gone too far. Sons of Levi, right? He's a son of Levi too. That's his own family doing this. His family. So his family was saying, how are you higher than us? His own family. Oh my gosh. The Levites have gone too far. So they let that get to their heads. Then Moses said to Korah, "Hear now, you Levites, is it too little for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to allow you to approach him in order to perform the duties of the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the congregation and serve him? He has allowed you to approach him and all your brother Levites with you, yet you seek the priesthood as well. Therefore, you and all your company have gathered together against the Lord. What is Aaron that you rail against him?" That's crazy. Why would they do that? I don't understand. Moses sent for Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab. But they said, "We will not come. Is it too little that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you must also lord it over us? Is it clear you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey? It is clear you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Would you put out the eyes of these men? We will not come." Lord, what is happening? They didn't even get a chance to fight yet. They're already all over the place. Moses was very angry and said to the Lord, "Pay no attention to their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, and I have not harmed any one of them." And Moses said to Korah, "As for you and all your company, be present tomorrow before the Lord, you and they and Aaron, and let each one of you take his censer and put incense on it. And each one of you present his censer before the Lord, 250 censers. You also and Aaron, each his censer. So each man took his censer, and they put fire in the censers and laid incense on them. And they stood at the entrance of the tent of meeting with Moses and Aaron. Then Korah assembled the whole congregation against them at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole congregation. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from this congregation so that I may consume them in a moment. So he said, sorry. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from the congregation so that I may consume them in a moment. Moses and Aaron, they fell on their faces and said, oh God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one person sin and you become angry with the whole congregation? He was about to destroy them all. He was not about to play around with any of that. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, say to the congregation, get away from the dwellings of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. So Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram. The elders of Israel followed him. He said to the congregation, turn away from the tents of these wicked men and touch nothing of theirs, or you will be swept away for all their sins. Ooh. So they got away from the dwellings of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the entrance of their tents together with their wives, their children, and their little ones. And Moses said, this is how you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these works. It has not been of my own accord. These people die a natural death, or if a natural fate comes on them, then the Lord has not sent me. Then the Lord has not sent me. Oh my gosh. If these people die a natural death, these dudes and their wives and their little ones, if these people die a natural death, or if a natural fate comes on them, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord creates something new, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into Sheol, then you shall know that these men have despised the Lord. As soon as he finished speaking all these words, the ground under them was split apart. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, along with their households, everyone who belonged to Korah and all their goods. So they, with all that belonged to them, went down alive into Sheol. The earth closed over them, and they perished from the midst of the assembly. All Israel around them fled at their outcry. For they said, the earth will swallow us too. And fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men offering the incense. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, tell Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, to take the censers out of the blaze, then scatter the fire far and wide. For the censers of these sinners have become holy at the cost of their lives. Make them into hammered plates as a covering for the altar, for they presented them before the Lord, and they became holy. Thus they shall be a sign to the Israelites. Ooh. So Eleazar the priest took the bronze censers that had been presented by those who were burned, and they were hammered out as a covering for the altar, a reminder to the Israelites that no outsider who is not the descendants of Aaron shall approach to offer incense before the Lord, so as not to become like Korah and his company, just as the Lord had said to him through Moses. It was only the descendants of Aaron. that could offer incense to the Lord. No one else. On the next day, however, the whole congregation of the Israelites rebelled against Moses and against Aaron, saying, "You have killed the people of the Lord." And when the congregation had assembled against them, Moses and Aaron turned towards the tent of meeting. The cloud had covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Then Moses and Aaron came to the front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Get away from this congregation, so that I may consume them in a moment." And they fell on their faces. Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censer, put fire on it from the altar, and lay incense on it, and carry it quickly to the congregation, and make atonement for them. For wrath has gone out from the Lord, the plague has begun." So Aaron took it as Moses had ordered, and ran into the middle of the assembly where the plague had already begun among the people. Oh my God, can you imagine that? He's like, "Stand aside from the congregation. I will strike them with the plague now." And it just started erupting, and the people, and Aaron's trying to put the fire out with incense. He put on the incense and made atonement for the people. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stopped. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stopped. Those who died by the plague were 14,700. He was about to kill everyone in the congregation. Those who died by the plague were 14,700, besides those who died in the affair of Korah. When the plague was stopped, Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Number 17. Man, put it in the comments below if you didn't know Numbers was this intense. I read it before, but I tell you, every time I read it, I'm a different person. I'm experiencing different things in life, and it means different things to me. So it's like I'm reading it. I've read it before, but it didn't hit the same. It doesn't hit the same when you read it again. So I'm grateful that I can read it with you. Numbers 17, the budding of Aaron's rod. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and get 12 staffs from them, one for each ancestral house, from all the leaders of their ancestral houses. Write each man's name on his staff, and write Aaron's name on the staff of Levi. For there shall be one staff for the head of each ancestral house. Place them in the tent of meeting before the covenant where I meet with you. And the staff of the man whom I choose shall sprout. Thus I will put a stop to the complaints of the Israelites that they continually make against you." Moses spoke to the Israelites, and all their leaders gave him staffs, one for each leader according to their ancestral houses, 12 staffs, and the staff of Aaron was among theirs. So Moses placed the staffs before the Lord in the tent of the covenant. When Moses went into the tent of the covenant on the next day, the staff of Aaron for the house of Levi had sprouted. It put forth buds, produced blossoms, and bore ripe almonds. Oh. Then Moses brought out all the staffs from before the Lord to the Israelites, and they looked, and each man took his staff. And the Lord said to Moses, "Put back the staff of Aaron before the covenant, to be kept as a warning to rebels, so that you may make an end of their complaints against me, or else they will die." Make an end of their complaints against me, or else they will die. Moses did so, just as the Lord commanded him, so he did. The Israelites said to Moses, "We are perishing. We are lost. All of us are lost. Everyone who approaches the tabernacle of the Lord will die. Are we all to perish?" Numbers 18, responsibility of priests and Levites. The Lord said to Aaron, "You and your sons and your ancestral house with you shall bear responsibility for offenses connected with the sanctuary, while you and your sons alone shall bear responsibility for offenses connected with the priesthood. So bring with you also your brothers of the tribe of Levi, your ancestral tribe, in order that they may be joined to you and serve you while you and your sons with you are in front of the tent of the covenant. They shall perform duties for you and for the whole tent, but they must not approach either the utensils of the sanctuary or the altar, otherwise both they and you will die. They are attached to you in order to perform the duties of the tent of meeting. For all the service of the tent, no outsider shall approach you. You yourselves shall perform the duties of the sanctuary and the duties of the altar, so that wrath may never again come upon the Israelites. You yourselves shall perform the duties of the sanctuary and the duties of the altar, so that wrath may never again come upon the Israelites. It is I who now take your brother Levites from among the Israelites. They are now yours as a gift, dedicated to the Lord, to perform the service of the tent of meeting. That you and your sons with you shall diligently perform your priestly duties and all that concerns the altar and the area behind the curtain. I give your priesthood as a gift. Any outsider who approaches shall be put to death. The priest portion. The Lord spoke to Aaron, I have given you charge of the offerings made to me. All the holy gifts of the Israelites, I've given them to you and your sons as a priestly portion, due to you in perpetuity. This shall be yours from the most holy things, reserved from the fire. Every offering of theirs that they render to me as a most holy thing, whether grain offering, sin offering, or guilt offering, shall belong to you and your sons. As a most holy thing, you shall eat it. Every male may eat it. It shall be holy to you. This also is yours. I have given to you together with your sons and daughters as a perpetual due. Whatever is set aside from the gifts of all the elevation offerings of the Israelites, everyone who is clean in your house may eat them. All the best of the oil and all the best of the wine and of the grain, the choice produce that they give to the Lord, I have given to you. First fruits of all that is in their land, which they bring to the Lord, shall be yours. Everyone who is clean in your house may eat of it. Every devoted thing in Israel shall be yours. The first issue of the womb of all creatures, human and animal, which is offered to the Lord, shall be yours. But the firstborn of human beings you shall redeem, and the firstborn of unclean animals you shall redeem. Their redemption price, reckoned from 1 month of age, you shall fix at 5 shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, that is 20 gerahs. But the firstborn of a cow, or the firstborn of a sheep, or the firstborn of a goat, you shall not redeem. They are holy. You shall dash their blood on the altar and shall turn their fat into smoke as an offering by fire for a pleasing odor to the Lord. But their flesh shall be yours, just as the breast that is elevated as the right thigh, and as the right thigh are yours. All the holy offerings that the Israelites present to the Lord I have given to you, together with your sons and daughters, as a perpetual due. It is a covenant of salt forever before the Lord for you and your descendants. As well, a covenant of salt. Then the Lord said to Aaron, you shall have no allotment in their land, nor shall you have any share among them. I am your share and your possession among the Israelites. So he won't have a land allotment. Wherever the Lord is, that's where they are. To the Levites, I have given every tithe in Israel for a possession in return for the service that they perform. So they get to keep all the tithes. And the service in the tent of meeting. From now on, the Israelites shall no longer approach the tent of meeting, or else they will incur guilt and die. But the Levites shall perform the service of the tent of meeting, and they shall bear responsibility for their own offenses. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations. But among the Israelites, they shall have no allotment, because I have given to the Levites as their portion the tithe of the Israelites, which they set apart as an offering to the Lord. Therefore, I have said of them that they shall have no allotment among the Israelites. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, You shall speak to the Levites, saying, When you receive from the Israelites the tithe that I have given you from them for your portion, you shall set apart an offering from it to the Lord, a tithe of the tithe. It shall be reckoned to you as your gift, the same as the grain of the threshing floor and the fullness of the winepress. Thus you shall also set apart an offering to the Lord from all the tithes that you receive from the Israelites. And from them you shall give the Lord's offering to the priest Aaron. Out of all the gifts to you, you shall set apart every offering due to the Lord. The best of all of them is the part to be consecrated. Say also to them, when you have set apart the best of it, that the rest shall be reckoned to the Levites as produce of the threshing floor and as produce of the winepress. You may eat it in any place, you and your households, for it is your payment for your service in the tent of meeting. You shall incur no guilt by reason of it when you have offered the best of it. But you shall not profane the holy gifts of the Israelites on pain of death. So this money, they're supposed to tithe part of the tithe part of the tithe to the Lord, right, that they are receiving from the Israelites. The part that goes to the Lord, Aaron's going to keep, and then the rest of the tithe, the Levites keep, right? Those who, they were getting paid for their service. It's like the thing that they were really complaining about, it seemed like wanting to have as much power. It's like jealousy was a big issue. Jealousy was a huge issue. Numbers 19, ceremony of the red heifer. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, This is a statute of the law that the Lord has commanded. Tell the Israelites to bring you a red heifer without defect, in which there is no blemish and on which no yoke has been laid. You shall give it to the priest Eleazar, and it shall be taken outside the camp and slaughtered in his presence. The priest Eleazar shall take some of its blood with his finger and sprinkle it 7 times towards the front of the tent of meeting. Then the heifer shall be burned in his sight. Its skin, its flesh, and its blood with its dung shall be burned. The priest shall take cedar wood, hyssop, and crimson material and throw them into the fire in which the heifer is burning. Then the priest shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. And afterwards he may come into the camp. But the priest shall remain unclean until evening. The one who burns the heifer shall wash his clothes in water and bathe his body in water. He shall remain unclean until evening. Then someone who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and deposit them outside the camp in a clean place, and they shall be kept for the congregation of the Israelites for the water, for cleansing. It is a purification offering. The one who gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. This shall be a perpetual statute for the Israelites and for the alien residing among them. Sorry. There shall be a perpetual statute for the Israelites and for the alien residing among them. Those who touch the dead bodies of a human being shall be unclean 7 days. They shall purify themselves with the water on the 3rd day, and on the seventh day, and so be clean. But if they do not purify themselves on the third day and on the seventh day, they will not become clean. If they don't purify themselves on the third day and on the seventh day, they will not become clean. All who touch a corpse, the body of a human being who has died, all who touch a corpse, the body of a human being who has died, and do not purify themselves, defile the tabernacle of the Lord. Such persons shall be cut off from Israel. Such water for cleansing was not dashed on them. They remain unclean. Their uncleanness is still on them. This is the law when someone dies in a tent. Everyone who comes into the tent and everyone who is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel with no cover fastened on it is unclean. Whoever in the open field touches one who has been killed by a sword, whoever in the open field touches one who has been killed by a sword, or who has died naturally, or a human bone, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. For the unclean, they shall take some ashes of the burnt purification offering, and running water shall be added in a vessel. Then a clean person shall take hyssop, dip it in the water, and sprinkle it on the tent, on all the furnishings, on the persons who were there, and on whoever touched the bone, the slain, the corpse, or the grave. The clean person shall sprinkle the unclean ones on the third day and on the seventh day, thus purifying them on the seventh day. Then they shall wash their clothes and bathe themselves in water, and at evening they shall be clean. Any who are unclean but do not purify themselves, those persons shall be cut off from the assembly, for they have defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. Since the water for cleansing has not been dashed on them, they are unclean. It shall be a perpetual statute for them. The one who sprinkles the water for cleansing shall wash his clothes, and whoever touches the water for cleansing shall be unclean until evening. Whatever the unclean person touches shall be unclean, and anyone who touches it shall be unclean until evening. This is the last chapter for this video, Numbers 20, the waters of Meribah. The Israelites, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there. That was Aaron and Moses' sister. Now there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered together against Moses and against Aaron. Why did they gather against them when they have a need instead of approaching them with their need? Why don't they learn a lesson ever from the way that they go about that? That annoys me that at no point they seem to learn that lesson. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Would that we have died when our kindred died before the Lord. Would that we had died when our kindred died before the Lord." So when those 250 people died, so now they replaced Egypt with the 250 people that tried to say that they were just as good as Moses and Aaron, right? Now we should have died when the 250 died. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness for us and our livestock to die here? Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? It is no place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink. Then Moses and Aaron went away from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting. They fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aaron, and command the rock before their eyes to yield its water. Thus you shall bring water out of the rock for them." Thus you shall provide drink for the congregation and their livestock. So Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he had commanded him. Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, "Listen, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me to show my holiness before the eyes of the Israelites, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given you." Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff. "Shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" Oh, because you did not trust in me to show my holiness before the eyes of the Israelites. Therefore, you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. These are the waters of Meribah, where the people of Israel quarreled with the Lord, and by which he showed his holiness. So is that where he told Moses that he was not going to see the lands over the Jordan? Therefore, you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. You shall not bring them there. Passage through Edom refused. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. "Thus says your brother Israel, you know all the adversity that has befallen us, how our ancestors went down to Egypt, and we lived in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians oppressed us for our ancestors and our ancestors. And when we cried to the Lord, he heard our voice and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. And here we are in Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Now let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard or drink water from any well. We will go along the king's highway, not turning aside to the right hand or to the left until we have passed through your territory." It's just too many people. But Edom said to him, so Edom is the area, right? Like the Canaanites, the area of Canaan, right? The people there, the people of Edom, the king of Edom said to him, "You shall not pass through, or we will come out with the sword against you." The Israelites said to him, "We will stay on the highway, and if we drink your water, we and our livestock, then we will pay for it. It is only a small matter. Just let us pass through on foot." But he said, "You shall not pass through." And Edom came out against them with a large force, heavily armed. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through their territory. So Israel turned away from them. So Israel turned away from them, from Edom. So I just want to draw your memory back to when Jacob, who is Israel, had left his father-in-law's property, and he had married Leah and Rachel, his two daughters, right? I mean, his brother, his father-in-law's daughters. That was the brother of Rebecca, right? So he had treated Jacob had been the supplanter, right? His hand came out of the womb first when it wasn't supposed to, and they had tied a string to it to show which twin was first. And Jacob, the supplanter, was the second born. He wasn't the firstborn, and it tricked the people who were trying to see who was firstborn, right? So he was not the firstborn. He was the secondborn. He was named Jacob because Jacob means supplanter. So his twin brother Esau, who was born first, he was the hunter. He was a hunter. and he was Isaac's favorite, their father's favorite. And Jacob was Rebecca's favorite. Just remembering in that moment that Rebecca is from the original lands where Abraham's people came from. I just wonder, and she was barren. She was barren. And the Lord had um, opened her womb to have her children. But I believe that Abraham and Isaac, like they had been living, were they living in Canaan? They were living in Canaan, and then they went back. Abraham had his servant go to that other city, right, where Abraham's people were from, to find Rebecca. So I'm kind of going all over the place, but my point of that was that Jacob and Edom was the other name for Esau. They were doing good. They were on good terms at a point, but then I think the sheer size of their army and things like that, and maybe they just didn't trust them to do what it is that they said that they were going to do, which, to be honest with you, they really were not that trustworthy. They had a lot of challenges just listening to the Lord and following what it is that they were supposed to do just to get to the land. It was tough, you know. I mean, but that's not a small undertaking either. But they had the Lord with them. So it's not like us in regular times trying to do it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I would be so confident with the Lord with me. I would feel so confident. The death of Aaron. They set out from Kadesh, and the Israelites, the whole congregation, came to Mount Hor. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor, on the border of the land of Edom, let Aaron be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land that I have given to the Israelites, because you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. You rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up to Mount Hor. Strip Aaron of his vestments, put them on his son Eleazar. But Aaron shall be gathered to his people and shall die there. Moses did as the Lord had commanded. They went up Mount Hor in the sight of the whole congregation. Moses stripped Aaron of his vestments and put them on his son Eleazar. And Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. When all the congregation saw that Aaron had died, all the house of Israel mourned for Aaron for 30 days. So the Lord had told Moses and Aaron that they were not going to get to go there. And their rebellion. Listen, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me to show my holiness before the eyes of the Israelites, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. So it sounds like when this happened, listen, you rebels, should we bring water for you out of the rock? Moses was supposed to say, it seemed like he was supposed to say, the Lord said, me, the Lord is making available, water from the rocks or something. He didn't attribute it to the Lord. He said, we, right? Shall we bring water for you out of this rock? Then he lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice like it was by some kind of magic. I think that was the problem. And that was the issue. All right. When all the congregation saw that Aaron had died, all the house of Israel mourned for Aaron 30 days. Okay, that's it for this chunk. All right, and we got 1, 2, 3 more videos in this series. So I will see you for Numbers 21. Bye.